Hello and welcome to the Pieces in Action Verb podcast. I'm here with Lesley Pihl. So Lesley, you and I know each other through our involvement with Tree Sisters starting back, I don't know, about 2017, where we both found ourselves somehow in the Facebook Inner Journey group. And that was like a year or so of really beautiful getting to know each other on a global scale, like you and me, and I don't know, hundreds of other women connecting
Mhm.
over the commonality of caring for this planet via caring for trees and caring for each other. And so that's how I met you. And I wanted to just pass it along to you to introduce yourself.
That was a beautiful group that we had on Facebook. Yeah. I remember being I remember that time I was going through it was from the accident and I was going through a bunch of stuff with the lawyers.
Ah,
I reached out to the group and I
yeah.
had all these, like to empower me because when you think of being in front of a panel, how scary that can be. And I just remember feeling so supported from all these women. It was just, yeah, it was really incredible.
It really was. And there was something about, I felt like it wasn't just us making a decision to sit down at our phone or our computer, but there was some driving force that was focusing our love and attention in a very powerful uh, way. The level of care and love, the level of connection and conversation was absolutely remarkable. And so yes, I remember you were going through some really challenging times at that point, and I'm glad that you felt like you got support that you needed from that community.
And the fact that we're still keeping together, like we still keep in touch with Claire, Sister Zeph in Pakistan, right? We're all really connected with her right now. And I had actually sent her, I think it was 4 or 5 Barbie dolls because she sent me a picture of the children in amongst garbage. And I'm like, why would they be amongst garbage?
Yeah.
And she's like, because they have no toys
Oh my
and they're
gosh.
trying to find something to play with.
Right.
So I found these Barbie dolls in Walmart, and they had darker skin, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they were all they were doctors and all kinds of different occupations and I thought, oh, that would be wonderful. But
Yeah.
the address on it was so long that the at the post office they didn't even know whether it would make it.
Wow.
So 2 weeks later, when I saw her, one of her students was holding the Barbie dolls. I
Oh
just
my
burst into
gosh.
tears. Like it was such a miracle that those dolls made it there, before the floods came and before all the chaos happened. And
That's a
so
huge
yeah, those
miracle.
connections are really strong, which is wonderful.
It is. And so just to speak to the peace action of listening to the inner call that says I should spend my time in this community on Facebook, and then the peace action of following up with connections that you have and sending gifts and being a part of a community in Pakistan. Uh, it's just wonderful. It's wonderful.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So and also in lines of the connections that we made, you and I helped each other. So I remember I had a phone call with you. I remember uh, leaving my office and going outside of my office building to get on. I don't know. It was one of those internet connections, and you were teaching me how to use it. I forget if it was WhatsApp or
FaceTime, were we or something? Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. And so you were heading into a doctor's appointment or something like that. And then when our parrot died, I remember that I was beyond distraught, and you sent me Reiki, and I could
Mhm.
feel your love just washing into me. And all of a sudden I was like, I was okay. I wasn't
Oh,
past the grief, but I was okay and
beautiful.
grounded. And so I want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to keep those connections and to send healing and to receive healing and to trust, that that's coming and going and just looking after each other around the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. And I actually should back up a moment and mention where you and I both are. So I'm in California, and you're in is it
Just
British?
outside Vancouver, British
Just outside
Columbia.
British Columbia,
Mhm.
just outside Vancouver. And so we're on the western seaboard together, in the
Yeah.
same time zone, uh, different countries.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing to have this connection.
Yeah.
Um, so Leslie, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about Reiki. So I think you have a special place in your yard, in your backyard, where you practice, and can you tell us a little bit about how you became a Reiki practitioner? Are you a Reiki master? Excuse me for not knowing very much about how that's all classified, but how did you come to Reiki? And then what is it that you're
Yeah.
doing with Reiki now?
Yeah, I came to Reiki. I have a good friend and she's a Reiki master. And I was going through breast cancer at the time. And so I was having treatments from her.
Ah,
And she just said to me, the best thing that you could do is to take your level one because that's when you do Reiki on yourself.
oh,
And
okay.
so, I can do treatments on you, but if you're doing it on yourself every day,
Hmm.
then that'll just, build on for your healing. And so I did. And then I enjoyed it so much that 2 years later, I went and I got my level two.
Okay.
And I do long distance more than I do hands-on.
Hmm.
I've just kind of switched, to more with the bees and with nature
Mm.
than with actual clientele because now I have two grandchildren.
Hey,
So
congratulations.
yeah, so I'm very busy with them. So yeah, I do more just long distance and then, of course, looking after my own health again.
Yeah, yeah. That's really special and important to reflect on, that you were in your treatment, you went out to someone else to help you, but then that person said, here's a tool for helping yourself.
Hmm.
And the intentionality of sending love to yourself and to be able to receive, to give and receive, those are both peace verbs, right? To give and to receive. And
Right.
to
Yeah,
start with that connection of, oh, I can honor myself, I can help myself, I can send love to myself, is very
exactly.
powerful.
It is powerful and it's very empowering for yourself because a lot of people, when they get ill or they find out a diagnosis about something, they hand over a lot of power
Mm,
to a doctor
mhm,
or like a Reiki practitioner. You could be doing the same thing with them, right?
mhm,
But
mhm.
as wise as she was, she brought that back to me to take responsibility for myself, but also to empower me on my path of healing. And I really appreciated that.
That's
Yeah.
profound. And so wow. So I think that so many people need to hear that. And so many people need to be given a vehicle to find that. Or it seems to me like healing is always an inside job. There's really
Hmm.
no way for anyone else to heal another person or another being. And yet there's also this importance of having guides, mentors, teachers, helpers, stewards of that healing. Like for example, I had surgery on my nose recently to be able to breathe better. I obviously couldn't do that surgery myself. I needed
Hmm.
the medical team to do that for me. And yet my cells in my body were the ones that stitched back up together.
Hmm.
They couldn't do that part. Like
Yeah.
that magic, that alchemy, that life force energy that was inside of me. And and then also was the decision on my part to ask for help, to say, hello, doctor team, will you help me breathe better?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so you went to your friend and you said, will you help me heal? And she said, here's a pathway for which you can heal yourself. And
Hmm.
so she was being that teacher to you, but you were also accepting that responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And now my daughter was going through a lot of issues. And so I said, same thing to her that,
Right.
that I had been said to me. I said, why don't you take your level one? And so
Ah,
she has taken her level one, and she's also now in the midst of doing her level two.
wow.
And yeah, she's feeling really good. It's really helped her with emotional healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really awesome.
So I'm going to add to the list of peace verbs for you, Reiki. Reiki as a verb, as a peace
Okay.
verb.
Yeah.
So you mentioned bees, you mentioned nature as being recipients of Reiki. Can you tell us more about that? Because I also wanted to ask you about the remarkable, beautiful place that you live in and your various different actions in support of the environmental health in your community. And so maybe we can
Mhm.
start with the Reiki, and then maybe we can move into some of the other things that you're doing.
The Reiki that I do for others or for myself
I
or
think you were saying, or maybe I misinterpreted. Are you sending Reiki to bees, or,
for
or are
bees.
you or are you just busy
I
with the
can
other things
I
you're doing?
Reiki situations, I send Reiki to situations, and then to people,
Uh-huh.
and then yeah, to myself. So
Okay.
it's kind of a full circle. But as far as the community goes, especially 2 years ago when with all the like in our country, and I think in yours as well, there was
Mhm.
a yeah, kind of a division between people, and so in my community, instead of, saying to this person, well, this is my view and this is your view, and we don't agree,
Mhm.
I just decided that I wanted to do something for nature
Mhm.
and to concentrate on the bees and to concentrate on sharing some beauty,
Mhm.
with our community.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to help people find some joy again and
Mhm.
smile again.
Mhm.
And so that's what we did. We started last year and we got an old boat and I painted it blue and orange. And then we planted all these little native plants
Mhm.
and put it down at the seawall.
Mhm.
And that's people were walking outside because we had lockdowns like you did, but people
Right.
still were walking on the seawall. So they were able to see this beauty in the spring and in the summer. And then at Easter, not well, Easter, I would put little Easter eggs. And then at Christmas, I put little fairy lights all over it, for when people went for night walks and things. And people loved it. And so we did this collaboration with the city. And so it's kind of a new thing that we're doing. And they gave us another spot, which was across from the liquor store. And I
Oh,
planted
wow.
a bunch of pollinators in there. And people that came, because I have to water it every day. So people come by and they're like, you inspired me to plant pollinators in my yard.
Wow.
And, this makes me joyful every day I walk past it.
Because who
What?
doesn't love a garden with a whole bunch of flowers? Like, how is
Yeah,
that impossible? I mean, it's impossible to love that. I mean, to not love that. You have to love flowers.
it is. And I think people pay more attention because I'm not a city worker, because they'll look at
Oh,
city workers
yeah.
and think, oh, you work for the city, so you're getting paid to water these flowers.
Huh.
But when they see, it's just like they do a double take when they see
When
somebody from the community
right.
on city land, watering
Interesting.
something and making it into something beautiful over the summer months. And it really makes an impression on them of, what could I do for my community? What could I do to volunteer a few hours a week that would bring some beauty? And it's really kind of taken off. It's really snowballed. So we have a third spot this summer, which is really beautiful. And I had the First Credit Union give me a little bit of money, so I was able to get a sign, a beautiful sign that's this
That is a beautiful
magnet.
sign. Yeah, that is a beautiful sign.
Yeah, so it has pollinator patch on one side and then bee haven
Hmm.
on the other side. And it's a little bit of a play on words, the bee haven part, because
Oh,
I'm trying to, in a a graceful way, talk to people about pesticides and what that does
yeah,
to bees and what
yeah,
that does to plants and how it affects the whole ecosystem.
yeah.
and that we have a third of our food source or more from the pollination of bees that they do freely, on a daily basis. So
So,
it,
so if I could pause you for a moment there, Leslie, because I've been hearing some piece verbs that I want to draw out of what you're saying. You found yourself in a moment in time where your community was starting to fight with itself.
mhm,
So there was a polarization that was happening. And you thought, I want to look for a way to unify, and I want to look for a third focal point. So if the focal point 1, 2 are against each other, fighting, not resolving, what if I created a third focal point, quite literally? Like, what can people look at that will
mhm,
unify, that will draw together, that will create a place of healing? And so you did that in a way where you planted a garden. You surprised people. I think surprise, we should add it to the list of peace verbs, because you
mhm,
you have been gardening in your own home for years. So
mhm,
people walking by you in your garden wouldn't be surprised. People walking by the city park with a city worker planting flowers wouldn't be surprised. But the fact that you surprise them by putting yourself in the other place, where you're obviously also giving a gift. You're giving a
mhm,
gift of your time. You may also be giving a gift of the actual plants.
mhm,
Uh, that was surprising and also delightful to them, because of both of those things, the surprise and the gift giving. And so then you inspired. So there was something about those two things that lit people up in their hearts and inspired them to come along. And now you're talking about yet another thing, is that you're communicating in a peaceful manner about, so it's rather than putting yourself in that polarity again, where you're saying like, you're using pesticides, I'm not using pesticides, you're using
mhm.
pesticides, I'm not, and it's like that. You're saying,
Yeah.
you're inviting, with a play on words and with a patch of beauty. And so you're going around rather than the confrontation. You're inviting people into the solution.
Mhm.
Wow. And you're exciting your community and snowballing across your city with other people participating. So congratulations. That's really exciting.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, and it's interesting because I became, it's called a butterfly ranger, right? There's
Mm.
about 10 of us in Paul River that all emailed because it was a David Suzuki initiative,
Mhm.
right? And so we all emailed, and yeah, we just found out that there was about 10 of us in Paul River. So we met, and one of the people that I was drawn to was Claudia. And so it was Claudia and I that have been doing all these little projects together. And then other people, like there was a woman on Texada and she's doing nature kids, and so we took this sort of initiative from David Suzuki without, I mean, we had a few webinars and that sort of thing, but then we all kind of went out on our own, sort of like blossomed with it.
So who is David Suzuki, and what does he do?
David Suzuki is a big environmentalist in Canada.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he has a foundation. He's in his 80s now,
Huh.
but he was a mover and shaker in his younger years. Yeah, he
Uh-huh.
lives in Vancouver.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you look him up, he had a TV show, I think it was called The Nature of Things.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, so
So
he
he's
was a
been educating
scientist.
and speaking out, and so it sounds like he's training, he's providing a way for you all to take your own local actions by giving you some training and some tips,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
also being a gathering point. So you signed up for his program, and then you received contacts of other people in your local area. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, it was just online. It was just basically telling you what were native plants, what would
Oh yeah.
be a good way to attract butterflies and to attract bees. And then, you just got your own funding or just went out on your own and
Yeah.
did that. Yeah.
Wow. How
So that
neat.
really appealed to me. And I didn't even know that there would be anybody else in Paul
Okay.
River that was involved in it. But Yeah, it turns out there's about 10 of us, and we're actually going to meet next week, and we're going to put on a little workshop at the library of, what happens with pollination and why it's important and why the bees are important. And I've been thinking, actually, I was going to, like with my fairy story, that was for a purpose. But now I'm thinking I might write about bees, and have that as a children's book.
So that's a great segue. So at first I wanted just to recognize the beauty and importance of working in community. So you were willing to do it by yourself, but then delighted and surprised that there were others there also doing this. And then
Mhm.
that makes it easier
Yeah.
when you have collaboration and camaraderie to go out and do it and have more fun.
Yes.
Um, so that's fantastic. And so not only are you planting these different gardens, but now you're going to hold a teaching event at the library, and more people are going to learn. Um, so that's great. And then library and books. So you wrote a children's book, and
Mhm.
I read your children's book, and then I gifted it to a young mother here in my neighborhood who was going through a prolonged illness and recovery process. And she said, I am so excited about this book because we love nature in our family, and my kids need help wrapping their brain around mom being sick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Can you tell us about that particular book?
Oh, yeah, it was quite a journey. I mean, I was involved in a motor vehicle accident, which was 8 years ago. And so the story was percolating about concussion.
Okay, so that was what happened. You got a concussion.
Yeah, concussion and different other injuries. And so I was actually on our ferry, the BC ferry.
Hmm.
And the idea just came to me. So I just wrote it all out. And my one of my best friends had passed on, but her granddaughter was on the ferry. And so she showed me these sketches that she was doing, and it
Yeah,
looked like fairies in some of her
yeah.
sketches. And so I just asked her at that moment if she would, do the work for my book.
So
And
it's
she
another play on
did.
words, Lesley, right? Sorry to interrupt you, but it's another play on words. There's Ferry, that boat that you were on, but it was Faerie, the protagonist in your story.
Yeah,
And so kind of like behaving, right? Or
I know,
behaving.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you just happened to see this young woman who was the granddaughter of your friend who had passed, and she was drawing these beautiful drawings that looked like fairies, and then this
Yeah.
story just started to come.
Yeah. Yeah. So we worked together. It took a couple of years, because she was only in, I think, grade 11 at the time,
Oh my
and
goodness.
going through some different things herself. But I think it really helped her confidence. I think it
It's
came for her at a really, really
professionally,
good time.
I mean, it's professionally illustrated. She
It
did a
is. She's
remarkably
very
good job.
talented. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's very talented. Yeah, by the time it was finished, she had moved to Victoria to go to university.
Yeah.
So, actually I went down there, that's where it was printed, and
Uh-huh.
we sat in the restaurant and went over the final edits together, and
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
she really felt part of it, and really appreciated in that. So, and we became closer. I didn't really know her that well,
Yeah.
and so it was beautiful for me to see, because I mean, Shelley was my best friend since I was 7 years old.
Oh, wow. A very close
So
friend.
yeah, and so seeing her at the same age that Shelley and I graduated was, yeah, it was a really special experience for both of us. So
How neat. So
yeah,
I remember that story being full of magic, hope, and also activism.
yes.
And
There's a quote from Claire in there.
Claire Dubois, founder of True Sisters. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And so book number one was that beautiful collaboration, and taking your own. So it was also taking your own trauma and letting it feed into that Fairy took a tumble and then she recovered and she had help.
Mhm.
And so to look at, to tell your story in that way, which is why it resonated with the young mom who was going through an extended healing process. It's just to be supported and to be shown that there is a healing process and that help is available.
Mhm.
Very beautiful story.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So you're looking at writing another book, and are bees going to be the protagonists in this book?
I think so. I'm not sure whether to carry on with the fairy stories, because I was going to do like a trilogy of the fairy stories
Hmm.
and incorporate bees,
Hmm.
or do a completely separate book from bees, because I don't see books out there talking about pesticides and bees for
Yeah.
children.
Mm,
And we talk to children about recycling, and we talk to children about, very adult things these days.
sure.
But pesticides and toxins that we have in our environment are not really highlighted in any children's books that I've seen.
And there's a lot of other messaging to scare adults and children, from the pest control side of things,
Mhm.
get rid of bugs, don't have bugs in your environment, where there's a lack of biology and ecology education in that. There's a mindset of fear that who knows where it came from. I'm wondering if too many of our ancestors had crops eaten. It's like, where does that come from? So at any
Mhm.
rate, I hear what you're saying of the
Well, I
importance of,
think where it comes from is pesticide companies, right? Like,
but why
yeah.
would they have a market to begin with? Right? Like,
Mhm.
absolutely, that messaging is coming from pesticide companies, but why would they have a market to begin with? What is it? What fear are they speaking to? So to
Yeah.
speak to joy, to speak to hope, I've been gathering apples this season as I do. It's, I don't know, 3 or 4 years into this, and opening them, and I've learned how to open them for making applesauce and drying apple chips and that sort of a thing without hurting the animals that are living inside. And so
Mm.
if you stick your knife partway into the apple and then pry it open rather than slicing through it, then you don't hurt anybody.
Right.
And to see that an apple is a world, it's a home to various different kinds of invertebrates, not just insects, but other invertebrates,
Mhm.
is just this remarkable miracle to me. And I think should be to all of us.
Mhm.
So, at any rate, I think that to have a story like that where you can talk about the joys of invertebrates and the help that they provide and and
The
how they fit into
importance. Yes.
the importance. So that moth that lives in that apple, the apple is the home for the moth and the moth is the food for the baby bird. So there's this
It's like,
cycle that depends.
mhm.
And then the earwig that lives inside of that apple is also the decomposer, so that we don't just have apples lying around for centuries to come, right? They
Yeah.
go back into the land. So wow, what a great book. And to
Mhm.
acknowledge, you said you've got two young grandchildren, to acknowledge the importance of magic and wonder and storytelling in shaping mindsets
Mhm.
and lives. The stories we read as children very much influence how we see the world as we move into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that's kind of my role as a grandmother, like we'll go to the beach and we'll look for bugs and look at the crabs on the beach and watch them run away and talk about things, but to be very respectful of them and
Yeah.
their environment, and if we find a feather, I'll say, what kind of bird do you think this is from? And we'll he grabs it now and he rubs it against my cheek,
Yes, you can
and
feel, yeah.
yeah, it's very special. I just yeah, I really want to encourage that in them, to really be aware of the environment and just in awe and appreciation of everything that happens on a daily basis. that is free to us, and but helps us survive, and makes soil so that we can grow things, and aerates the ground, and all these things are happening while we're talking on here, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it
That's
is a
right.
miracle.
It,
Yeah.
it is there are so many miracles around it, and that's one thing I really appreciate about you, Lesley, and in the way that you interact on Facebook. So you post a lot of photographs of beauty, of your
Mhm.
daily beauty, whether it's your husband's vegetables, coming out of the, and you said oh, I'm going to remember, my mind is drawing a blank, but the riverbank, but what do we call that? The alluvial
Simple.
fan? The What did you say he's growing on top of? When a river has banks on either side of it, it's called,
The
I'm a soil.
riparians, or
Oh gosh, this is silly. My brain is just completely blanking. But you made it the point that he grows next to a river, and the soil is really good because of that, because of all the floods that have
oh,
happened
the
over
delta soil.
the delta soil.
Delta soil.
That's what I was looking for.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so Tracy's pulling vegetables out of the ground. You're taking photographs of them. There's been many photographs of your willow tree, of the mama deer and her babies that come.
Oh, every day.
Yeah. And of the sunsets and the beach, and lately the kayaking.
Yeah.
And
Lots of kayaking and
yeah,
fishing. We're actually fishing in our
fishing.
kayaks.
Wow. And managing to not drop your camera into the water.
They're what?
You're managing to not drop your camera into the water.
Ah, yeah, I know. People keep saying that. I actually have a Ziploc bag. And I was thinking yesterday, I thought what I should do is put a piece of styrofoam in the
Oh,
Ziploc bag so that if it does fall over,
yeah, yeah.
it'll float, right? So
That's a good plan.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so
I'll
you
patent that for people.
yeah, really, there you go. You can call it the LP floater or something like that. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the way that you draw attention to beauty, and that you focus attention onto it, you share it, you expand it by the sharing of it. So, there's a million ways that you could post on Facebook. You could complain, you
Mhm.
could, I don't know, show things that you bought, but you don't do that. You show beauty and you focus on beauty. And so when I see a post from you, my day gets a little bit better.
Aw. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I try. I mean, I have my days when some of our political agendas, I, I post things, but I try not to get caught up in that because it changes. It's something I have no control over. I can vote and I can voice my opinion to council, which I do. But I tell you, the positive vibe of doing these gardens
Yeah.
has been 100-fold more. um yeah, just more.
Persuasive?
Yeah, it has, and it's really led to other things. Like now I'm working with this woman. We both want to bring the movie Seed from Vandana Silva,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Wow.
to Paul River. And so, she owns his Paradise Farms. And so I'm going to talk about, the gardens and the pesticides. And then we'll show this movie to the community.
Wow.
So it's bringing us to other people and then other people to us. And it's nice, positive flow.
Wow. Bringing us to other people and other people to us. And so, Vandana, is it Shiva? I get how she pronounces her name, but she's a woman in India, right?
Yes,
Is she,
she's one of my heroes.
is she an agronomist? I know that she has a lot to say about, uh,
Monsanto.
right, and the engineering of seeds to
Mhm.
be expecting Roundup,
Yeah.
and the importance of seeds not being owned by a company and a patent, but their life, and to allow life to be life without
Absolutely. Yeah.
taking it into ownership and then selling it back to poor people, poor farmers, right?
Mhm.
So, and she's also demonstrating the ability of the earth to be bountiful without all of those modern death-based tools.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she's a real amazing voice, and we need more of her. Yeah, she's a
Yeah,
very brave woman.
she is brave. And she's
Hmm.
also very focused on truth.
Yes.
She voices, if you think about peace verbs, and her maybe main peace verb is to voice, and in that she's being remarkably brave,
Hmm.
remarkably.
Yeah.
So blessings to her,
Yes.
blessings to her. Yeah. And to all the hope that she engenders by that voicing. And so to amplify her voice by showing her film and bringing it
Mhm.
to your community and doing that in concert with the gardening. And gardening is very much a peace verb,
It
especially
is. Yeah.
gardening
Yeah.
in full sight. You can garden in your backyard. Uh, but if you're gardening in public spaces, gardening in your front yard, that becomes a
Mhm.
conversation starter. That becomes a point of inspiration.
And people walk by it every day, and they ride their bikes by it every day. And yeah, the gardens right now are just gorgeous, and we have California poppies in there. Yeah,
Wow.
they grow well here. And yeah, all just tons and tons. It's I just every day, it brings me so much joy, and I take so many pictures of the flowers.
Yeah.
But I know that whenever I'm watering, people are just amazed and grateful and happy about it. So,
And are you seeing more butterflies and bees?
oh, definitely. Yes, there's honeybees on there, there's bumblebees, there's butterflies, there's crickets, it's kind of its own little ecosystem now. Yeah, and it's
That's
only been
really
there like 4 months, 5 months. Yeah.
really encouraging to think about the like if we have perennial plants which live more than one season and are slower growing, and we have annual plants that live one season and that's their full life cycle and they set seed and then the next season they grow from seed. So wonderful that annuals are that way, because in 4 months you can have a full garden. In four
Mhm.
months you can start from a seed or a package of seeds and you can have all of that abundance right there. And to let that be a doorway to planting with natives, where you will also, you know it's great to bring the perennials in, especially for the longer term structure that they can provide and support. And I'm speaking more from like a California point of view, but I imagine that's also true anywhere on this planet. The importance of the balance of the annuals and the perennials, but the perennials can sure get that ball rolling, especially
Oh, yeah. And
the
especially if
flowers.
they're native plants,
Yes,
that's
yes,
that's
yes.
super important too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I should have started that by saying within the world of native plants, the annuals they play this really important role of the the return on the work happening quickly. You don't have
Hmm.
to wait 5 years for that plant to mature before it flowers. It's there this year with
Yeah.
the flowers.
Pop of color.
Yeah,
Hmm.
pop of color and so helpful for the bees. So my goodness, wow. So gardening, writing books, teaching grandchildren, finding ways to invite people in rather than to fight with them in order to solve problems. Such a
Hmm.
lovely way of going about things, Lesley. Have you always had that intuitive way of approaching things, or is that something you've learned through your life?
Um, I think I remember because with logging,
Mm,
years ago, we used to stand, in front of logging trucks and that sort of stuff, right? And I remember one time I was standing in front of a logging truck, and I had walked. I don't know what made possessed me, because it could have been not ended well, but I walked kind of in front of a logging truck.
mhm,
It was on a dirt road, so it was going slow,
mhm,
but it stopped in front of me, and there was this big giant grill, that
mhm, mhm,
I was
mhm,
kind of this little person kind of looking up, and I just thought, this just isn't the way for me.
mm,
I just want to do things a different way. And I ended up doing a calendar.
Hmm.
And it was showing the beauty of Pihl River and the different areas of Pihl River. And I had it, calendar girls where they had women who were naked, but
Yeah.
they were hiding behind things. Yeah. So we did that in nature. We
Oh
had
goodness.
people, yeah, sort of in trees and the moss of trees and on waterfalls. And so I did
So,
that,
so you
and
were a tree sister before you were a tree sister.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Or a tree fairy or a tree nymph before, before you wrote that book.
I was, yeah. I mean, I've always just had a very, very strong connection to nature and yeah, especially trees and especially whales,
Yeah,
those two, like the elders of the land and the elders of the ocean.
absolutely.
So yeah, so it kind of started then. I
How
just
old were you
um
approximately?
think I was in my 30s because when my kids were born, my son had asthma. So I noticed when I was at home that there was this inversion of the weather, and we had this mill, and the mill,
Hmm.
sort of hung the
Yeah,
smoke from it.
yeah.
And so I joined this group called anti-pollution group. But then we started our own little group, and it was Mothers Against Pollution.
Uh-huh.
But then I started to read books. I can't think of her name right now, but she was about affirmations.
Yeah.
You know who I mean? Yeah.
No, no, I know what you're
She recently
saying.
passed.
I don't
Yeah.
know who you're talking about, but what I'm hearing from you, the theme is if you're going to be against something, you're feeding the fight.
Yes.
If you're
Yes.
going to be for something, you're inviting people to join in the solution.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a lot easier to get people on board when you're for something. And you don't have the same stress level as you do when you're against something because, that invokes anger and confrontation,
Right.
and people just shut down. They
Absolutely.
don't
On
listen.
both
Yeah.
sides, right?
'Cause there's too much stress, for people now. And so the only way to kind of reach people that I find is in a gentle way and with a lot of pictures, and beauty.
Beauty,
And
playfulness, and a little hint of skin, apparently, at least when you
yeah,
were younger, Lesley.
yeah. And then that draws people in more, because people only have so much time and so much attention for
Yeah.
things. And so if you're going to hit them with something that's just going to, bring them down even more than they already are,
Yeah.
they're just going to walk away.
Yeah.
But if you show them a flower and then you show them a picture of a bee on a flower, and
Yeah.
then kind of explain the life cycle of this bee, and then there's this interest and this education that happens in a gentle, graceful way, right?
For
So
sure. And I have a biology and natural science background, and I forget that not everybody does. And so things that I'm just like, oh yeah, I know that. Most people don't, and that's not
right,
their fault. And
yeah,
so to say like flower, bee, life cycle, and ecology, and more life cycle, and did I mention cycle? and,
yeah,
and
and we're a part of it.
yeah, and that people don't know that, and that's not their fault. And
No.
so if we
But we
start
do
the
have
conversation,
a large role, because we can either extinguish that cycle or we could enhance that cycle. We have a lot of power
as
in that.
humans, as humans,
Yeah. And so we need to be aware of that in things that we do
right?
in a healthy way. And I think, if we show people the actual nuts and bolts of that, then they can start to understand and think, when they're out, should I really do this or should I really do that? And I read this thing once where you're either putting a deposit into
Oh,
that bank account
uh-huh.
or you're withdrawing, if so you're
Right.
either giving to the earth or you're withdrawing for the earth. And you do that every single day, and so if you do that every single day where you're giving to the earth, then that bank account of the earth, the ecology and the biodiversity grows instead of
And
withdrawing from
you're
that.
talk you're sorry to jump in, but I just got excited because you're not only are you talking about the bank account of the human to the earth, so you can withdraw, you can take the vegetables or you can put the compost or both, right? But what you're also saying in this whole conversation, Leslie, is that you could put a deposit into the community or you can withdraw, because you're
Mhm.
also talking about what you're doing in your human community that is very much attached to that cycle of nature. And I'm hearing that if you if you fight with somebody, if you come to that person that's not educated about pesticides and you just yell at them for using pesticides, you're withdrawing from your community. But if you take the time to plant a flower bed that's going to meet them in their heart with the beauty, and then you take the time to teach them, you're depositing.
Mhm. Exactly.
Wow, what a neat connection. And do you remember what point in your life that you heard that expression about depositing and withdrawing?
The deposit of withdrawing. No, not really. I mean, I've read a lot of books and I've watched a lot of things. And
Right.
I've just taken bits and pieces that resonate with me,
Yeah.
and that has always resonated in every area,
Yeah.
of my life. So yeah, I mean, even with my own personal health, right? Am I
Ah,
withdrawing from my health? Did I have,
ah,
McDonald's burger today, or did I deposit with a big, beautiful green salad from the garden? So it's
right.
micro and then macro.
Micro and macro. And also you started this conversation by talking about Reiki to yourself, so this act of love, this act of giving and receiving, it starts with oneself, and then it ripples out into every single interaction we have, right? So
Mhm.
your family, your community, your garden, your neighbor, the deer, and her children, the fawns. It's the ocean and the whales and the fish and everything. It's this
Yeah.
connection of healing self, healing others, depositing and withdrawing, and reciprocity, balance.
Yes. If we could all do that, wouldn't that be incredible?
Well, and we can, and isn't that exciting, right? We can.
Yeah.
And I see so many signs of hope, and I think it's also like glass half empty, glass half full, right? So
Yeah.
here it is, it's 111 degrees today. And we have an app. You may also have it where you are, which is very much like Facebook, but it's for your neighborhood, and it's called Nextdoor. And so
Mm.
you can be on Nextdoor in a very similar way you can be on Facebook, but it's actually geolocated to where you live. And so what I'm seeing on Nextdoor in the last week are conversations about, hey, who's putting water out for the animals,
Wonderful.
right? And or
Mhm.
I put a post about my solar oven, and there were like 30 people that liked it and a few people
Mhm.
that asked me questions. And then there's people that talk about riding their bicycles around. There's people that are using Nextdoor as a way to start Friends of Creek groups where they're pulling trash out of the creeks. There was a post
Nice.
about, hey, I saw this family of otters, of river otters. And then the conversation was really getting at this very same thing you've been talking about, which is people are undereducated about biology and animals in our environment. And so there were people that saw the otters and thought, oh, they need water. But what they didn't know is that otters like to go on a little walkabout. So otters will leave the river and just go on a walk. In the same kind of
Mhm.
way a dog or a cat might be curious and want to take a walk.
Right.
They can get back to the water, but they weren't there because they were having some fun. So people
Mhm.
don't know that. They were worried about them needing food and wanted to know, can I feed them sardines, like a can of sardines? And so, but what you really got from all of that was so much love and concern for the otters and delight, right?
Wonderful. Mhm.
And so there's these opportunities to meet people where they are and build
Mm.
their level of awareness and understanding in a way that is supportive rather than, like, hey, you don't know, a thing about otters. Well, there's no reason to shame anybody. there's so many reasons to build them up and to engage. I
Absolutely. Yeah. You can
Yeah,
have
and
a little solar cooker potluck in your backyard.
I'm heading in that direction. My a
Yeah.
neighbor and I are going to have a demonstration on our little, like we have a little park that goes through our neighborhood and our homeowners association, and we're going to meet later next month and cook cookies. She's going to make the dough, and I'm going to bring the oven, and we're going to share the cookies and show people how it
Fantastic.
works. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like these little things
Hmm.
um, that start with like, well, what can I do personally? So before I could do that, I had to learn how to use the solar cooker myself, right? So like before you can show people how to garden, you also actually had to learn how to plant a seed and see it through to success,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so we start with ourself. We figure it out on ourselves, and then we
Yeah. Work on ourselves, learn as much as we can to share. Yeah,
and
exactly.
reach out. So I hear you're reaching out. So you started with a little boat by the seawall, and that was you and the other lady,
Claudia. Yeah.
Claudia.
Hmm.
So it was a dynamic duo out there,
Yeah.
and so you could have done it yourself, but somehow it's a little bit better and easier and draws more people in when there's two of you.
It does. Yeah. We do need more volunteers, that's for sure. Claudia's actually been in Italy for 4 weeks, so I've been I've been doing it mostly myself, but I've just worked out a routine. I've got a big hose now, and one of the stores has let us use their hose. So I just sit and I let it all
Wow.
soak in.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just worked out.
So
But
the
we do have more sunshine, like you do. So our temperatures are still high. So
yeah,
they do need watering, but that
yeah,
also means that the flowers are still blooming,
right,
So
right. And so it's almost like a potluck. You're talking about, it's almost like people bringing different food to share with the community, but it's like a potluck garden. You've got the store that's nearby sharing the hose with you. You're there watering. It's a joint effort.
it is, yeah, and lots of people donated plants. I would just come home one day and there'd be all kinds of little plants on my stairs,
Wow.
from people.
Yeah,
So yeah, a lot of people contributed. It was awesome. Yeah.
that's really amazing. It's really amazing. I'm going to just check in with where we are on our time. Oh, wow. 3 more minutes. I think we're kind of perfect. Was there anything else that you thought like you wanted to share in this conversation? I think we've touched on so much of what I wanted to explore with you.
Yeah. No, it's been wonderful to talk with you. And yeah, I'm really glad that we've kept in touch over all these years.
Me
We
too. Me
just
too,
always had
Lesley.
a connection, and I would love for us to meet, at some point. I would love to host the Tree Sisters here. It would be just
Wow.
fantastic. Wouldn't
I
that be
love
great?
that vision. That would be so fantastic. I would love to sit under your willow tree.
Yes, yes, it's right there. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
And I would love to see you here in California too, if we could figure out an exchange,
Yeah.
some kind of event in here in Northern California where I am.
Yeah. Well, we're both doing the same thing. We both have our hearts in the right place and doing what we can for our communities, even though we're in different countries. So
Yeah, yeah, for
a
sure.
wonderful thing. Yeah.
For sure. Well, Lesley, thank you so much for this conversation. And I look forward to talking to you soon. And I guess we'll just